is it's being used since JMeter 3, and we don't need to add any manual libraries. But apart from that, a few things which we have to discuss, like okay, let's see how to use a JSR terminal, like Groovy scripting. So for that, let me open my JMeter. So how to use a JSR to like a Groovy scripting in your sampler. So go to your JMeter, and it's going to be just an example, a demo of how to use or how to add a Groovy script in your JMeter. So go to thread group, add, and in this case, I'm going to use my JS sampler, which is going to be JSR totally sampler. And here, I'm going to use a command, which is I'm going to just print the date. So for that, I think I already added one. So here I have one. So I'm going to print the date. So I haven't, see, just imagine the same thing if I want to bring in a date command. Just imagine how many libraries I want to bring in, how many classes I have to bring in. But when it comes to JSR to the sampler, we can just write the command, and that is just that new data with the UTF format. That's the format of data which you want to do. And all we are doing is just printing the data in the response, just that. Let me enable it. And let me quickly run this to show you what happens. So let me just quickly run this one. Yep. So Groovy executed at Sunday 25. Yep. That's the timing. So it's very simple. Like you haven't been made your hands dirty by bringing in all the classes. You haven't used a main method or anything. All you're doing is just running the test, and you're checking the log viewer, and that's it. You're able to see the timestamp in your logs. And that's very simple. So all you're going to do is make sure you're using the right methods. Just that. All will be taken care of by Java and JMeter. So now you might have a question like, why should not I use Bean Shell, and why should I use or not JavaScript? So if you want to add two numbers using Groovy, it's very simple, right? But still, let me quickly show you with an example. I'll have two scripts. So for example, like let me add a new sampler here. And in the first case, let me use a Bean Shell. So here I have to declare. So in Bean Shell, we have to declare the variables as int and whatever this string and everything. So I'm going to use int 5 plus 3. It's a very simple example, and I'm going to print it like log.info. Sum and add a semicolon. Save this. Yep, and let's run this one. Oh, come on. Yeah, so we got the sum is 8. Let's define the same thing using Groovy. So for that, I'm going to use a kind of a similar one, JSR23 sampler. And here I'm using Groovy. And the point is I'm going to use a similar statement. I'm not going to make much of a fuss. So it's going to be 5 plus 3. And again, I'll return the values. Dollar of sum. Sorry. Okay, I think it should be inside quotes. So I have added the values, and I'm going to assign these values inside the sum, and then I'm printing it. Yeah, so we got, so the difference here is, so both of these have a similar command. So here I have declared them as integer and the numbers here, and then I'm returning the values, and here I have defined the values as sum, and then I have defined the values. So the difference is Bean Shell is fine, but it's more verbose. So under a heavy load, what happens is this is just a very small scripting. But just imagine we are not going to use a similar kind of a code in our testing. We are going to use a heavy, a customized step, multiple steps. Like we are going to extract some values in from the response, and we are going to manipulate it, and we are going to make some changes, and then we are going to get the substring, or we're going to get the values from it, and then extract it and making changes and adding some values to it and sending it back, or defining it back to another variable. So all this happens, right? So when you're doing all this, bean shell is, when I say more verbose, so it takes a lot of efforts to do all this. So what happens under a very heavy load, Groovy performs much better. So which I'll explain you in the later slide now. So that, but there's a difference between these two. Like there's a very basic, simple example. It's just adding two variables, adding two integers, and returning it. But the difference is the way it holds the value, the way it uses the verbose part. So the next thing is, let me disable this for now. And then the next thing is Groovy works everywhere in JMeter. So that's the point. Groovy is not limited to samplers. We can use Groovy in um, post processors. So if you see, if I, let me just open post processor, JSR23 post processor. So here we can use Groovy, and we have got preprocessors, JSR23 preprocessors. Here we have got Groovy, and even in timers as well. So if I go to listeners, we have got the JSR23 listener. So even here also we can use Groovy. So when it comes to preprocessor, um, when it comes to preprocessor, we can use it to prepare the test data. So this is used to prepare test data here. And when it comes to post processor, we can use it to extract or to validate the responses. So we cannot just do like whatever thing these have their own set of actions. So that's the reason we have to use these for set of activities. So like I told you, pre-process, they're useful for preparing the test data, the post processors to extract or validate the responses, and yeah, even we do have the assertions as well. Sorry, I forgot to add that. Add assertions, and we have JSR23 assertions as well. So assertions to add custom logic for any pass or field condition. So we all know why we use assertions to check the text check or do some image check or something like that. So even for doing for adding any custom logic, we can use JSR23 assertions. That's the main criteria of doing all these. And then we do have JSR23 timers. So again, listener, yeah, JSR23 listener, which can use to create additional waits or delays, right? Okay, it's not a listener. So where is the listener again? Uh, Listener. Okay, sorry, timer. Timer. We do have JSON to the timer, and this is used to create conditional waits or delays. Because in some scenarios, we all know there are some scenarios where there were a scenario like it could be an asynchronous kind of a request and response where people might have to wait until a particular text gets loaded on the page. We all know that there are scenarios where we are testing a page, some data or some text would load little later, but the regular time, the regular think time, the regular delays will not help us, because they normally follow the same pattern of running after one after, like if they complete their timing, they go to the next transaction. But when it comes to JSR to the timer, we can make some conditional waits. That is, we can wait until a particular code or until a particular response is getting loaded. So that is the way where we can effectively use the Groovy in, I mean, like, using your Groovy integrated with your timers, the Groovy integrated with your results, right? Um, let's say if you want to wait for just 2 seconds, and if the word you can just let me just quickly show this one here. For example, if you're waiting for a word like uh, login, so you have logged in, so you are waiting for a word like welcome. So until you want to see the word called welcome, so you can just wait. So you can make some wait using the code. So for example, let me just quickly write the code here. I don't have a proper setup, but I can just give. So if var start get, which is you're going to get the value from the word user type, like welcome. So once you log in, you get the word called welcome. So, but you can wait until the word or until the response getting loaded. Sorry. So until that, you can write a thread.sleep. So this is a basic, a very basic syntax. That's it. So you're going to get the response through your var.get inside the value, which is user type, and you're going to wait until the word called welcome, which is getting loaded. So this will actually create a dynamic wait. So until you get the response or until you get the value from the response, you wait. And after that, you're going to wait for another 2 more seconds to have an additional delay. So that's how you're going to get this dynamic way of waiting. Because in several scenarios, people might ask me like, there is some word I have to wait until the page gets loaded. I should not just go on, keep on jumping to the next page. So in those cases, you can use JSR to the timer effectively for particular custom-based scenarios. And some tips for the beginners. So if you're a beginner, you can always use the JSR 2 to 3 plus Groovy combo for scripting. So you can avoid bean shell unless you have a very legacy code. So you have a legacy code which is already built. So in those cases, you can use bean shell. But if not, if you're going to do it from scratch, you're going to do it for your new application. So you can use JSR 2 to 3 plus Groovy. It can be a post processor, pre processor, listener, whatever it is. And when you use a script, you can use the built-in values like let me just show you. So you can use values like vars, that is that, okay, you can use like vars, and you can use props, you can use ctx, and you can use log. So we know log.info, log.one, log dot various other ways to give logs. And we can use vars. So vars, we can vars.get, where we are going to read the value, and vars.put, where we're going to assign the values to a particular uh, uh, variable. And then we have got props, we've got ctx. We'll see more examples on how to use these, because these actually gives you a full control over the JMeter internal. So by just using these variables, by just using these built-in objects, you can very well handle, you can very well control whatever is inside the system. So log, you can use it to print it through the log. You can just read the logs and everything. So to summarize this slide, so we all know Groovy comes pre-installed with JMeter 3. JMeter 3. So after 3.0, we started to use Groovy, and we can use it across all the JSR 2 to 3 components. So which we have seen here. We can use it in post processor. We can use it in pre-processor for preparing the test data, listeners to understand or to get the results, and to read the uh, what is the responses and everything, and then the sessions to add any custom logic for pass or fail conditions, and to add the timer, where we can add a customized timer where we can do dynamic waiting using these timers. And then let's go back the next one. Okay, so